All right, this is the counteroffer form. You'll use this form to go back and forth with the buyer or seller till you work out a deal or not work out a deal. Either way, this is the form that you use, and it's a pretty straightforward form used in most counteroffers here in Florida. Before we get into it, as always, I'll point out the wizard at the top of the page here. Should be green, which means it's turned on by default. So the wizard is what shows the explanations and walks you through the form. You can turn it off and you can still see the descriptions, but it won't walk you through the form. So however you want to do it, it's up to you, but just be aware that that's what it does. And also be aware that if you click the X in the corner here, it also turns off the wizard, which is kind of annoying, but just know that that's what's happening. So if you want to close a box, just click somewhere outside it, and that'll close it and it'll keep the wizard on. So anyway, let's get into what we need to do on this form. The first blank right at the top is the counteroffer number. If it's blank, you can fill it in if you know the number, which if it's the first one, that makes it pretty easy. But we'll fill it in for you if you aren't sure. So we will enter 1. And then the next lines you come to is the buyer or seller name. And we're doing this video from the buyer's perspective here, but it's really the same for the sellers. So also be sure to enter your name the way it appears on the main contract. That's very important. And we are John and Jane Smithsonian. And then enter the effective date, which is the date of the last signature on the main contract. And we'll just enter a random date, whatever date that was, just using that for an example. And the property address. All right, and then we're getting into the main part of the document here. You'll see a lot of writing. We're not going to read through it all. We're just going to go through the different fields that you will fill in here, and these are what we are countering. So the first one is the one that's used most, and that's the counter to the purchase price. So if you want to counter that, then you'll click here. Let's say our house is listed for 200, and let's say they offered 180, so we'll come back with 190. So next is the closing date, and you can do all of the counters. You can do one, doesn't matter. Just it's up to you. So you can do as many as you want. Closing date. Keep in mind, if you're looking to change a whole lot, though, that the person is going to be like, yeah, right. So I'll just make that note. So if you're changing a whole bunch of things, just make sure they're kind of minor things. But if you're changing a whole bunch of things, then you just got to be careful because the other party can reject that. So anyway, back to the closing date. Say the closing date was, let's say it was April 24th, and we want it to be April 20th, whatever. So just put that in there. Next, we have a space for the things in the home that you want included. Remember from the contract in section 1, there's all these things that are included. But let's say you're the buyer and you want something else like the washer and dryer that you didn't put in the original offer. You can enter that here. So we're going to check that and we'll put washer and dryer. Then if you want to counter something else in the contract, let's say there's a part in section 9 from the main contract. I won't pull it up here, but it's the special assessment section. So here you'll enter the line that's checked, which is line 183. Oh, I skipped a line here. So this line is what's excluded from the deal. And this is usually from the seller's perspective. Like, say the buyer requested the washer and dryer and you don't want it to include them, then you would enter that here, washer and dryer. Now to the next section, which I got to prematurely. If you want to counter something else in the contract, and then again, let me go back to like section 9, which was the special assessments. You'll enter the line here that was checked. And so that was line 183 in the main contract. And there's a box that is checked and it's box A. And let's say you want box B. So here you'll type the 183, but then requests box B. Selected. And I just put ... You can type the rest of it out, the rest of that line. We'll scroll down. Then we have a date for the counteroffer to be approved by. So you enter the actual date, not just say like 3 days from now. And usually it's 2 or 3 days. So you'll just enter the date. So say 2 days, 3 days. Let's say it's the 27th. I'll note that say if the third day falls on the weekend, then it moves up to that following Monday. So 5 p.m. Monday is the deadline. So 3 days, 1, 2, 3 gives us the 27th. So we have by 5 p.m. on the 27th. And last but not least, there's a space for the buyer and seller to sign. If you're the first to sign, we will send it to the other party for their signature. So we'll sign John Smithsonian and enter the date. And then remember, if there's 2 parties, if you click sign, it'll automatically populate with the John Smithsonian. So we're going to do a new signature for Jane Smithsonian and sign and date and close it. That's about it. Just hit the done button to submit it. Say it's good to go. And that's it. All right. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. Thanks a lot.